Hello and welcome to BeeWalk. This video is going to cover submitting your BeeWalk survey data. So once you've been out and done a survey on your Transact, if you head back to the website and log in, we can submit our data. So if we head to the My Walks tab, and this will bring us up a calendar. So here we choose the date that we did our survey. And then it takes us to the About Your Walk page. So here's where we enter the basic information about that survey. So we need to select our site, our location. So the date will autofill from the previous calendar page, and the recorder name will default to the name of the BeeWalk account linked to that Transact. So we need to have our start and end time. So we need to use the 24-hour clock format for this. Put in our sunshine levels, our wind speed, and the temperature. And then we can click on Next Step at the bottom right. This will take us to the Your Observations page. So here's where we enter the bumblebee data. So it does start off with just one row for data, but every time we complete this row, it will add an extra one underneath. So we start by typing in the species that we saw, and then we'll get an auto form come up. So if I start typing buff tail, we'll get a list of species that has that set of letters. So we do have solitary bees on this list as well, so just double check that you're selecting the bumblebee, so the bombus. So here we've got buff-tailed bumblebee, bombus terrestris. Then enter the section that it was seen in. And then the caste, so the numbers of queens, workers, males or unknowns. So if you knew it was a buff-tailed bumblebee but you weren't sure of the caste, you can pop the number in here. So if, for example, I knew that I'd definitely seen a queen, I could put a queen in here. Maybe I'd seen another buff-tailed, but I wasn't sure of the caste, whether it was a queen or a worker, I could put that here. So you can add in comments here, so information such as nest searching behaviour or mating behaviour. You'll also have an additional column titled Flowers if you selected the BeeWalk Pro when you were first registering. And this means you can enter the information on the flowers that you saw the bumblebee foraging on. So if you don't have that column, but actually you would like to record the bumblebee's forage plant, just send us an email and we can get that added onto your account. So we then move on to our next species. So common carder. So again, just double check that we're selecting the bumblebee species, so the bombus species. I saw that in section 1. And the queen. And then we would go on with all the species that you'd seen on that survey. So we do have some options to help if you weren't sure of the identification. So we'd always rather you recorded an unknown bumblebee rather than guessing at a species if you aren't sure. So we have an option that is bumblebee. So we can just type in bumblebee and select bumblebee or bombus. And we can choose the section. And it's probably more than likely that it was an unknown caste. So if you weren't sure of the species, you might not have been sure of the caste either. So we would pop the number in that column. So as I say, in terms of data quality, it's always best for us if you're not sure to put it down as an unknown. And we still use that data. We still do analysis on total bumblebee numbers. So that data is still useful for us. So we also have a species category where we're putting together our white-tailed and our buff-tailed bumblebee workers. So our white-tailed, so our Bombus lucorum aggregate group, and our buff-tailed bumblebee workers, Bombus terrestris. The workers are incredibly similar and very difficult to tell apart in the field. So we have a separate category that you can log these under. So if we start to type in white and then do a /, we get our white/buff-tailed bumblebee worker option. So we can select that, and again the section and the number in our worker column. Now, if you have any issues here, you can edit that species, or you can delete that row and then start again if you need to. Now, if you'd done a survey and you hadn't seen any bees at all, which can happen, particularly sort of in the early end of the season or the later end, please still submit that here. So you would fill in the survey details, so that previous page. You would leave the Your Observations page, this page, blank, and click on to Next Step. And here you could note down, for example, no bees seen, and that will be absolutely fine. So once you've added all your species in, you can move to this page, add any notes if you need to, such as meadow section 1 was cut, or there'd been flooding on a section, and then click Save. What I'm just going to show you is a common error which stops data being saved. So it's really easy to be sort of super busy typing in your species, putting the number that you saw in, and then missing out the section. So section ID here. So I'll show you what would happen if I'd got a row where I'd put a species in but not put a section in. If we go to Next Step and I try to save, it will bring me up a data not saved message. So if this message ever does come up, the best thing to do is go back to your observations page, and here it's telling me the spatial reference must be supplied. So that's telling me I've missed a section. So more often than not, if the data's not saving, there's something missing on this page here. So just come back to this page and double check that you've got your species in, you've got your section ID and the numbers. So here I'd go, I can see I've forgotten to put that section in. So if I add that in and go to Next Step and save, that will go through fine. So if you do have issues with data saving and you can't figure it out from looking at this page, if you could take a screenshot and then email that through to BeeWalk@bumblebeeconservation.org, we can help you find out what the problem is. So once I've corrected that issue there, so add my section in, if I go to Next Step, for example, this time I've got no notes to add in, I can click Save, and that data will come through fine. So you'll get a little green thank you message, and that means we've received the data at our end. Now, if you need to make any changes to that data at any point, you can come back to this calendar and you can click onto that data entry, and you can make any changes. If, for example, you've realised you've put the start time in incorrectly, or you wanted to change a species in here, you can do that and make your changes and then save again. And that will overwrite any of the previous data that's been entered. So any changes will need to be made by the end of the calendar year for us to be ready to download and look at that data at the beginning of the year. So if you've got any queries at any points, please email BeeWalk@bumblebeeconservation.org. Thank you for listening.